Good morning, Chair Ainsley. Can we do a sound check?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We do have quorum
I
in the
just
room.
need a moment, Nancy, to get my script.
Sounds great.
Hey, Nancy, I think I'm good to go.
Okay, whenever you're ready, you could call the meeting to order. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. I am Councillor Paul Ainsley. I'm the Chair of Scarborough Community Council. We have quorum. I am now calling meeting number 18 to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at the Scarborough Civic Center in the Council Chamber. This meeting is also being live streamed on youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. For the land acknowledgement, I would like to say on behalf of my colleagues and City of Toronto staff that although we may be meeting in different locations today, Community Council would like to acknowledge the land we're meeting on is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. If you're registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I'll call speakers in the order that they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting Scarborough Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Also, a reminder, members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on the Clerk's meeting portal. Clerk's IT staff are also available to us if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind everybody to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at scc@toronto.ca to help with any motions. At this point, I'm going to ask if there's any declarations of conflict of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Seeing none, can I have a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting on November 1st, 2024? Moved by
McKelvey.
McKelvey, seconded by Myers. All in favor? That carries. I understand there is a new business item that needs to be brought forward to the agenda. Councillor McKelvey, did you want to introduce your item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is a speed study for East Avenue. We had cars speeding down East Avenue, and one of them almost hit our crossing guard. Very unfortunate. So we're asking city staff to have a look and see if they have some suggestions for other safety measures.
Okay, thank you. Can all in favor of introducing this item? That carries. And we're just going to go through the agenda once I get my other script. Sorry, I have a slow computer this morning. Okay, there we go. The first item on our agenda is SC 18.1 2102 Lawrence Avenue East and 1 Ellington Drive, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application, decision report for approval. And we have speakers on this item, so I'm going to hold that. Our next item is 18.2, 3174, 3176, 3178, 3180, and 3180 Eglinton Avenue East and 1 and 7 Center Street, official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment. Decision report for approval in Ward 24. I'm going to hold this for speakers. Our next item is SC 18.3, 123 Bellamy Road North, zoning amendment application appeal report. This is Ward 21, Councillor Thompson.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you. I'd like to just move the staff recommendations and to thank the staff for their diligence and so on and so forth. And although this is not a matter that is going to be approved, it's being appealed, staff's position is very clear on behalf of the community. I'm really delighted with respect to the position they're taking, and I'm hoping that the applicant will see fit to converse with our staff in order to ensure that we get what is actually in the best interest of all, including that of the applicant, but more importantly, that of the community. So I'd like to move that and ask for a recorded vote, please. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thompson is moving the recommendations in 18.3. And he's asked for a recorded vote.
All those in favor of Councillor Thompson's motion to adopt the recommendations in the staff report, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Myers, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Candeval, Chair Ainsley. That item carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next item is 18.4, 4158 to 4180 Kingston Road and 8 to 12 Overture Road. This is a zoning bylaw amendment appeal report in Ward 24, which is my ward. I'm going to move the recommendations. All in favor? And that carries. Our next item is SC 18.5, a review of zoning regulations for nightclubs in Ward 20 in Scarborough Southwest. This is a final report. Councillor Candeval.
I'd like to hold it.
Okay. Councillor Candeval is holding number 5. 18.6, 2102 Lawrence Avenue East, alterations to a designated heritage property and demolition of a building under Section 33 and 34 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and authority enter into a heritage agreement. This is being held for speakers. All right, just scrolling through my notes. Our next item is SC 18.7, 2771 and 2773 Victoria Park Avenue residential demolition application in Ward 22. This is being held for speakers. (18.8) is SC 18.8, 18 Alanbury Crescent application to remove a private tree. We're going to hold this for speakers. SC 18.9, 20 Shirley Crescent, application to remove a private tree in Ward 24. I'm going to hold this for speakers. SC 18.10, 615 Kennedy Road, construction staging area in Ward 20. Councillor Candeval.
I'll move staff recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Cannavale is moving staff recommendations. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is SC 18.11, permanent road closure, Agincourt Drive, north of Sheppard Avenue East, and road dedications, Sheppard Avenue East, east of Reidmount Avenue in Ward 22. Councillor Mantas.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Moving staff recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Mantas. Councillor Mantas is moving the staff recommendations in 18.11. All in favor? That carries. SC 18.12, Metrolinx Scarborough Subway Extension, long-term temporary road closure and public highway dedication, Kennedy Station connection, emergency exit Building 1 and Lawrence Avenue East Station.
I'd like to hold, please. Councillor Myers.
Okay. Councillor Myers is holding number 12. Our next item is SC 18.13, Farmcrest Drive, traffic calming, speed humps in Ward 22. Councillor Mantas.
Moving staff recommendations. Moving the item.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mantas. Moving the staff recommendations. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is 18.14, Euclid Avenue, traffic calming, speed humps in Ward 25. Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank city staff for doing a speed study, making a recommendation, and my office who conducted a poll of residents on the street and received 96% as favorable. So I am moving staff recommendations and I ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, Councillor McKelvey is moving staff recommendations and asking for a recorded vote.
All those in favor, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Myers, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Candeville, Councillor Mantas, Chair Ainsley, that item carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. Our next item is SC 18.15, Megan Avenue, traffic calming, speed humps in Ward 25. Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank residents that expressed their concerns over safety, city staff that did the study, brought forward a recommendation, and my office for conducting a poll on the street, which indicated 90% of residents are favorable of speed humps. With that, I move staff recommendations and ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, Councillor McKelvey is moving the staff recommendations and asking for a recorded vote.
All those in favor of Councillor McKelvey's motion, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Myers, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Candeville, Councillor Mantas, Chair Ainsley, how are you voting? I can't.
In favor?
Thank you. That item carries unanimously.
Sorry, you lost me there, Nancy, or you're okay?
I just lost a view of you for a second. Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is SC 18.16, Rouge Hill Drive, traffic calming, speed humps in Ward 25.
We have a deputation holding.
Okay. And our next item is SC 18.17, Lawrence Avenue East and Valia Road / private driveway, traffic control signals in Ward 25.
Likewise, holding
Councillor
for a deputant.
McKelvey.
Holding for a deputant.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't have that on my list. SC 18.18, 1550 Birchmount Road, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes in Ward 21. Councillor Thompson.
I'll just move the item. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson is moving the item in number 18. All in favor? That carries. And then our next item is SC 18.19, 781 Victoria Park Avenue, designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes in Ward 20. Councillor Candeville.
Chair Ainsley, I'll move staff recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cannavale is moving the staff recommendations. All in favor, that carries. The next item is SC 18.20, renaming of Rosebank Park in memory of Councillor Cynthia Lai in Ward 23. Councillor Myers.
Holding, there's a deputant.
Okay,
Chair, can we move the time up for that item as there's the deputant would like to, has another appointment?
you want to hear that first after we've run through the agenda?
Yes, please.
Okay, if everybody's in favor with that. Okay, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is SC 18.21, East Avenue Road Safety Study that was introduced by Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move that. It's a report back in Q2.
Okay, all in favor of the recommendation? That carries. Okay, that's our run through of the agenda, and we're going back to SC 18.20, renaming of Rosebank Park in memory of Councillor Cynthia Lai. Sorry, Nancy, I'm having trouble with the speakers list.
So on the speakers list, you have Denzel Manenwang.
Okay,
Thank you. Former councillor Denzel Meningwong, Don Valley East. Yeah, got it right. Okay. Welcome to Scarborough Community Council. You have 5 minutes to speak on the, I'm sure you know this already though.
But this, I'm usually on your side of the table, but I haven't appeared before City Hall since I left a number of years ago. I think it's 2 years ago. But I wanted to come back today because my friend, former Councillor Cynthia Lai, is being recognized today and appropriately having a park named after her. So a lot of you were friends with Cynthia the way I was friends with Cynthia. She was a wonderful person. She was a great councillor. She was a good representative of her community, and she was a model for people from the Chinese community, and especially women, Chinese women. I became friends with Cynthia very quickly once she was elected. I actually knew her before then, when she was head of the Toronto Real Estate Board. And she was a very dynamic person, very well spoken, and she was very, very effective because she was very positive about everything. She was very ambitious. When she wanted to do something, she took a hold of it, always with a smile, and I think that was part of her success. One of the things that she was that she got involved with in the last term of council that I participated in was she was very involved during COVID, and as you recall, there were a number of problems in the Chinese community with regard to comments and criticisms that were made, and she was part of the mayor's committee, and she was a strong spokesperson for that. So a really key person speaking up for the Chinese community. I think it's really great that she's being recognized here today, again, because of her involvement in her ward, her involvement in the Chinese community, and she stands as a model for young women, especially immigrant women. She came to Canada from Hong Kong, and she was such a success, and she did it herself. And I think it's a great story that people need to know and understand. The one thing that I would recommend, I have some small experience in parkland dedications, and they usually put up a sign, so I guess it'll be Cynthia Lai Park. But I think it's important, given Cynthia's history and involvement in the community and the city, that there needs to be a second sign that's put up that actually explains her history and her story and what she did as an entrepreneur and as a mother and as a city councillor. So when people go and they say Cynthia Lai Park, 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, there's going to be a sign next to it. Someone's going to say, who was Cynthia Lai? And they'll all know because there'll be a story explaining who she was and why the city decided that she deserved this very nice honor. So I leave it with you. It's nice to be here, and thank you very much for moving this item up in the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denzel. Much appreciated. It's great to see you again. Does anybody have any questions for the deputant?
I so wish I did. Hopefully he'll come speak on another topic in the future.
Okay, seeing no further deputants on this, I'm going to bring it into committee. Does anybody have any questions of staff on this item? Councillor McKelvey?
Speaker, sorry.
Sorry?
I put my hand up early just to speak.
Oh, okay. All right, Councillor McKelvey to speak.
I want to thank my council colleague, Councillor Myers, for championing this initiative. When I was elected in 2018, there were only 3 new people on council, myself, Councillor Lai, and Councillor Bradford. And being in the ward next door, Cynthia and I very, very quickly became friends. In fact, she used to call me her buddy, which was always strange, but I think the only person that would use that word or call me that was Cynthia. And she was a whole lot of fun and a lot of energy, and most proud of founding Asialicious and bringing support together for the restaurants in her community. And what struck me when I went to Asialicious is there were, the restaurants. So it was about the food. It was about the economic development in Scarborough that she was so very passionate about. But then there were performances. And those performances also included Cynthia Lai singing and dancing in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. And while I can't, and she would always laugh because I would tell her, I can't cook, I can't dance, I can't sing, I can't do any of the things Cynthia Lai can. But I can also tell you that even if I could, if I was on stage, my community would be yelling, McKelvey, get the hell off stage, what are you doing? But Cynthia could get on there and own that space and belong. And she was just as good of a performer as she was a politician and a kind and generous human being. And she is missed, and I am so grateful that we're acknowledging her in this way today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McKelvey. Further speakers? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to speak about my friend and everybody's friend, Cynthia Lai. Cynthia was a force of nature. In fact, she had an affection that affected everybody, which was one of goodness and joy. She always spoke highly and kindly of everyone that she knew. Cynthia and I were really good friends, and her husband, and in fact, we traveled together. We traveled to Jamaica, spent some time just moving around and getting to know my country of birth. She loved the country and the people. In fact, one of her really cool things that she would do, she would go into a store, not necessarily to buy something, but just to talk to people, to get a flavor as to what, they were up to, what the area that they lived in was all about, and just knowledge. She always wanted to gain knowledge and just to meet people. And everyone that I know and were in contact with her during my time with her would just essentially just enjoy her and her company. She always had an energy. She was always laughing and dancing. We had a favorite Chinese restaurant in Montego Bay in Jamaica that we would go to. And the very first time we went there, Cynthia was back in the kitchen telling the people what to cook and how to cook it and so on. I remember her joy and love for and watching me eating bitter melon. It was quite bitter, but she loved it and so on. And she would make fun of at least those who didn't enjoy it, because she really loved it. I offer those personal and more intimate aspect with respect to the person, because I think that as we all know and see her in terms of, doing her work and representing her ward in a very gallant way, in a way that was really about energy and bringing forward ideas. When she talked about the Agelicious, we were in Jamaica. We talked about it as a result of the Taste of Lawrence that I had started, and we had some ideas. She felt it was necessary to do something in the north, as my colleague always refers to his ward in the north, and the start of that. And I was chair of economic development at the time, and she just felt that it was necessary to do something, to bring people out, to bring the spirit out, and so on. And by gosh, she was very successful, because it happened, and everyone came and enjoyed, and it still continues to this day. So, when I look, for example, I just Googled her name a moment ago, and it said her office is permanently closed. While her office is permanently closed because she's no longer with us, she's, of course, one of the angels in the heavens and so on, and at some point, we will all see her, and she will welcome us with open arms, and she'll be, singing and dancing, and of course she'll have her wings, and she'll tell us how to use our wings, of course, when we get there. And so on that occasion, we at least will have a friend in heaven, right, in terms of being able to meet her and see her and so on. But she was just a force of nature. She was such an amazing person. And I'm really delighted that we are going to name something after her. And as much as it says permanently closed with respect to her office, she is never going to be forgotten because of what we're actually doing here today. And maybe what we will do continuous in terms of her memory and her legacy. She was an amazing person and so on. Just before she passed away, in fact, a few weeks before, we were talking about what we were going to do after the elections. In fact, we had planned, again, to go back to Jamaica because she just loved the place. She loved the beach. She loved the water. She loved the food and so on. And one of the things I recall myself and her just on the Rose Hall property, we would stand on the elevated hills and just watch the waves and watch the sun and just watch the way the water basically would move. And she would try to emulate that and so on. So I take that as an amazing memory of Cynthia Lai, our former colleague, and I wish her husband, and I chatted with him a few months ago. I think we saw him, chatted with him, and he is doing well, and her two boys. She was so proud of her two boys. She was always talking about them, great family and friends. And when we got together for barbecues and gathering and so on, again, she was just so much energy. She was just the life of everything, and she was infectious in that she caused you to feel joy just by being in her presence and so on. So I will dearly miss her, and may I just simply say, rest in peace, beautiful Cynthia Lai. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other speakers?
No, if anybody else has to speak, I'll speak, Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Myers.
So first, I'd just like to thank the deputant for coming, and I'd like to also move that we amend the motion that it specifically state that a biographical data should be included as part of the plaque so that people do know who she was and what she did for our community. I'd also like to just read a letter from her family that they wrote in support of the motion. Dear members of council, we are writing as the family of Cynthia Lai, a dedicated public servant who served as a Toronto City Councillor for Ward 23, Scarborough North, with unwavering commitment and passion. On behalf of our family and countless others whose lives she touched, we are deeply moved by the proposal to rename Rosebank Park in her honor. Cynthia was more than a councillor. She was a devoted advocate for her community and a champion for inclusivity. Her work in public service was guided by a deep desire to bring people together and improve the quality of life for all residents. One of her most notable achievements was her involvement in the Agelicious Festival, an annual celebration of Asian cuisine and culture. This initiative not only supported local businesses, but also showcased the incredible diversity of Scarborough, fostering understanding and connection among Toronto's residents. Cynthia's impacts extended far beyond cultural initiatives. As a TTC commissioner, she worked to improve public transit accessibility for residents in Scarborough North and across the city, pushing for the extension of the subway line into Scarborough North. She was passionate about creating opportunities for everyone, and her legacy is one of care, perseverance, and inclusion. Renaming Rosebank Park in Cynthia's memory would be a fitting tribute to her commitment to public service and the Scarborough community. This gesture would honor her extraordinary work and preserve her legacy for future generations. We wholeheartedly support this motion and encourage City Council to approve it as a way of commemorating Cynthia's remarkable dedication to our city and its residents. Thank you for considering this motion and for your ongoing efforts to honor the contributions of those who shaped Toronto into the vibrant city it is today. Sincerely, the Fung family. So I think that just kind of sums it up. I've got to know the Fung family. I've seen them at functions, Mr. Fung, Derek, and Darren, and you can definitely see why Cynthia had such pride in her sons. They're very, very high-achieving individuals. I think they were both top 40 under 40. Mr. Fung has always been very, very gracious. Whenever he sees me, he stops to chat. And I've also gotten to know her staff quite well, her former staff. I see them out in the community. They're still doing work. They're still doing good. They're still, continuing her legacy of public service. One of them is a school board trustee. Another one works for Yihong. Some of them are at city council with other councillors. So they're serving our city in different ways. And I'm just very, very honored that I get to continue her legacy. Some of the projects she was working on, the long-term care home at Finch and Brimley, the widening of Steeles Avenue. Those are just two of the major projects that, she started or she was working on that now I can get to continue. She passed the torch on and sort of seeing those projects through. So I think this is an important tribute to an individual who gave her life serving the community, not just as a councillor, but before. She was very involved in commemorating the community through different types of work, whether as president of the Toronto Real Estate Board or through her various activities, whether it's charity or whether it's in business. So I thank my colleagues for the opportunity, and I would like to ask for a recorded vote, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Myers. Sorry, Councillor Mansis. Did you want to speak or you're voting? All right. I'll leave it with the clerk to call the names. Recorded vote on item is, sorry, we have to move the amendment first.
Sorry. So we'll just move the amendment.
Okay, all in favor of the amendment? That carries. And then the item as amended, Councillor Myers asked for a recorded vote. All in favor?
On the item as amended, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Myers, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Candeville, Councillor Mantis, Chair Ainsley. That item carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Myers, thank you very much for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Chair.
Our next item is SC 18.1, 2102 Lawrence Avenue East and 1 Ellington Drive official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment application. This is a decision report for approval in Ward 21. And we have two registered speakers. The first one is Helen Phillips. And then Andrew Hannaford from MHBC Planning.
What do I do? Thank you. Okay. All right. I'm here to speak about this particular issue. Ellington Drive is a residential, not an arterial road, as are Birchmount Ward and Pharmacy and Victoria Park. To the south, Lawrence Avenue East, there is no left turn because it's such a dangerous street. West is Warden Avenue that goes to the 401. East of Ellington is Howden Road, which is a commercial industrial road. And to the north, just shy of the Costco store where Ellesmere is, it turns west to Warden. There are 5 connecting streets through the that go through to Warden from Ellington. Ellington's designated as as a road for emergency vehicles, and it covers the entire length of the community. At one point, we tried to get speed bumps because a lot of people thought it was a speedway and they could just go straight down Ellington because it was such a long street. We were denied access to the two speed bumps because it was deemed an emergency access route. Now, Ellington itself is a residential street. It measures 9 meters across from curb to curb, which is 30 feet for people like me who don't really understand meters. A parked SUV van or car, etc., could take up to 1/3 of that and slow up any emergency vehicles. Generally, 3 cars are parked overnight on. This is what I noticed, that there's generally no cars parked on Ellington. But on Wednesday night, there were 3, and that's because there was construction being done on a house there, and there was a large container for debris, and so therefore, the cars were on the street. Now, one of the problems is that because it's for emergency access, there could be problems also for snowplows, utility vehicles, and such. This recent apartment project that is not shown on the notice boards on Ellington or Lawrence East is 1/3 larger than the original that we had a public meeting about on June 2023. The original was 100 units, 86 apartments, and 14 townhouses, with 1/3 affordable. And for that, there was 56 parking spots. This unit is now 148 units, 1/3 affordable, and part of it is on Ellington, and the rest is at 2102 Lawrence Avenue East. Now, the big thing here is that people do park on Ellington Drive during the daytime. And as much as people want to think that somebody in affordable housing does not have a car, they will have visitors and relatives and service people and whatever. So there will be more cars than the number that they have got, which is 100. So I've got a solution that I'd like to present for this problem. If they stay with 148 units and 100 parking spots, maybe they could increase the parking to 148 and keep Ellington clear for emergency vehicles. Bicycles are not overwhelmingly dominant in this community, so maybe we don't need a lot of bicycle spots. We could decrease the new project down to 100 units, and since it already has 100 parking spots, that would take care of the problem. But that would mean sizing it down to 100 units. Or we could make Ellington Drive a no parking zone from Lawrence to Bohm, since the number of cars that may be available will probably not go past Bohm Avenue, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., no parking at all on the street. So I'm talking about 7 p.m. at night to 7 a.m. in the morning, so the emergency vehicles can go up and down the street. That is a possibility. Since we had no input into the size of this project after June 23rd, other streets affected close to development that have no sidewalks are Guildhall and Rosellum. They should also be no parking zones, whether it's for the same time or not, to safeguard pedestrians at least one side of those, on at least one side of those streets. Because if there's no parking, if there's no sidewalks, there's going to be disasters. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Questions of the deputy?
Chair, Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Thompson?
Good morning, Ms. Phillips.
Hello?
Good morning, welcome. So thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for being here. You and I have chatted about this development on a number of occasions, and participated in the meeting, as you mentioned, in June of 2023. So I've heard your presentation, and again, thank you for that. The issue that is more problematic for you that I heard through your comments, is it the parking issue, or is it the development as a whole?
I realize I can do nothing about the development, but the safety of my community is really important to me. And since it is a residential street, and if you've got cars parked on it on either side, I know right where my house is, there is no parking because of the curve in the road. But if you've got cars parked there overnight and emergency vehicles are supposed to go up there, how are they going to get past? How are they going to do it timely so that my neighbors and community members are safe?
Sure, got you. So if we're able to address the issue around parking to your satisfaction, or to a degree that minimize the impact and the safety concerns that you have brought forward, you would then be in agreement with respect to this development. As you've said, you're not in disagreement with it. You're concerned about the safety. But if we can assure you that we can deal with that issue around parking, because we can, would that satisfy your concerns?
I don't think I'll ever be satisfied with anything in life, but that's beside the point.
Okay.
I really, really think that the safety of my community is paramount. And since that street has always been known for that, and people do not generally park on that street because it's such a long street because of that.
Well, they do park on that when the church is actually in session on Sundays. And
Oh, yes,
Yes.
but that's only for short periods of time, and it's generally during the daytime. It's not overnight. I'm really concerned about the nighttime. And the other thing is, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, it was the speed bumps that we tried to get once for there. We never got them because it's an emergency route into the community. And then the interesting thing about it is that all the streets that go off Ellington go straight over to Warden in a straight line, so that there's easy access into all the different houses in the community.
Right. So, Ms. Phillips, our policies have changed now dramatically from the first period when you and others wanted to put speed bumps in, because what had happened way back when, the fire department and the EMS were opposed to having speed bumps. We are now having more speed bumps in Ward 21 and other wards as well. So if I can assure you that we can actually implement, as part of a process, speed humps along with parking restrictions that eliminates the residents who will live at this location, if I can assure you that that will happen, does that ease your concern about safety? Because safety is my top issue as well, as is yours. Does that help you at all?
It does help. I'm not as worried about the speed bumps. I'm concerned about parked cars, because that really does affect the safety for any kind of fire truck or snow plow. Look, we're coming up for winter. There's going to be snow everywhere. If you've got cars parked there and an emergency vehicle is trying to go, how are they supposed to get there?
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Phillips.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that all?
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of the deputy? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
Thank you.
Next deputy is Andrew Hannaford from MHBC Planning.
Okay, good morning, councillors. My name is Andrew Hannaford. I'm an associate with MHBC Planning, and I'm here today on behalf of our client, Kindred Works. As you know, this application proposes a 12-story rental apartment building at 2102 Lawrence, a retention of the existing heritage chapel on the site, demolition of later church additions, and demolition of the existing single detached at the rear of the property. We've reviewed the staff report and recommendations and are in agreement. The proposal provides for 148 rental units, 46 of which will be provided at below market rents, and 23 of which will be barrier-free. We'd like to thank planning staff we've worked closely with throughout this application process. I would highlight, just in response to the last delegation, that there is a transportation report that was submitted that does look at all of these impacts. Staff have reviewed it and we're satisfied with the findings. And we're committed to working with staff through the site plan process to follow. So with that, I'm just available if there are any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hannaford. Any questions of the deputy?
Councillor Thompson.
Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, Andrew, and thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Andrew, can you maybe just speak to the change and transformation that occurred after the 23rd of, actually, I guess it's the 19th, but in 2023 when we had the community public meeting, all virtual?
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Councillor, and through the chair. So our initial application through the first submission to the City of Toronto had a 12-story building along Lawrence and then a series of townhouses kind of densely packed in the rear of the site. That configuration, well, nice, did present some challenges with regard to sort of transportation moving throughout the site, access, as well as transition to the rear and sort of setbacks. So since that time, we've taken it back and we've found that a 6-story rear apartment sort of configuration in the rear, as opposed to the townhouses, it opens up the site more, allows for better pedestrian circulation, connections to the surrounding sort of trail network, and better sight lines for vehicles coming into the site. It also did allow us to provide more rental housing, which I think is very important in this neighborhood, and correspondingly to that, an increased proportion of below market rent, which is always great to see. So we do think it's a much better proposal at this time, a better response to community concerns, and provides for a better transition to the neighborhood to the north.
Right, and this will be a tenanted building?
That's correct.
And can you tell us about the ownership of the property, please?
Sure, yeah, very briefly, and I am the planning consultant, but through the chair, the applicant for this site is Kindred Works. They are developing housing across Canada, including a number of sites within the City of Toronto. They have a memorandum of understanding with council to provide for affordable housing across the city. So this is being developed as part of that portfolio. They do a lot of work with former places of worship that can be reimagined to provide for housing in areas where it's needed and where land is now available.
So Andrew, can you help me just a little bit background on Kindred Works? I mean, who owns the property? And then that entity, Kindred Works, I mean, who owns that?
Sure, thank you. And through the chair, I will give a high-level overview. I'm not an expert on the ownership structure. However, they were founded through the United Church of Canada. I'm not aware of that.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, they were founded through an agreement with the United Church of Canada.
United Church of Canada.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm not aware of the exact legal structure there,
That's
but
fine. I just wanted you to produce the United Church of Canada.
Yeah, that's correct.
Just another quick question. So there is the church, and I guess there's a house at the back. I would presume that to be the manse at the back?
That's correct. It was formerly the manse.
And there are people living in that manse at the moment?
Yeah, so thank you, Councillor, through the chair. My understanding is there is one current tenant within that. It is the former manse on the property, and we are working, or the applicant is working with city housing staff on a tenant relocation and everything that goes along with that.
Right. And just because you're the planner,
Yeah.
can you help me to understand the situation with respect to the facilities itself? Are there amenities for people to enjoy the outdoor area? And then also, perhaps, what is the status of the church? I know we have the other item, the heritage piece, if you speak to that. And then the burial ground, the burial site. Can you maybe just speak to that as well, please?
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Councillor, and through the chair. Yeah, so the site currently consists of Wexford Heights United Church, which I believe is no longer operational as the congregation it was long known as. So the proposal would be to keep the historic, I believe it's 1876 chapel on the site. The newer additions to the church would be demolished. The cemetery is to remain, and you'll see that within the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment that those are proposed to be remained as open space and to be remained in perpetuity as a burial ground. We do have a great deal of outdoor amenity proposed, largely at the north, along the north primarily of the property, as well as along Ellington, that would provide sort of community and resident amenity, and then the historic chapel would form part of the indoor amenity for the proposal.
Can you help me then to understand the situation of screening as it relates to the northern portion of the area, which is a residential area, because of the fact that we are actually rezoning the address number 1, Ellington, and so because of its proximity to the other residential properties, perhaps you can help us to understand what the buffer is, what the screening plans are, and so on.
Yeah, and thank you, Councillor, and through the chair. So yeah, that's correct. So towards the north of the property and the adjacent residential properties, by changing to that 6-story form, we were able to incorporate, I think it's a 9.6 meter, about 30 feet of separation distance to that north property line. There are a number of tree plantings proposed through there that you can see within the landscape plans that were submitted to city staff. There is sort of a pathway through there that connects some of the indoor amenity on the site to the outdoor. some sort of garden elements and other landscape features that, and in addition to like the tree plantings that would sort of help to screen and separate the two uses. And that we believe provides an appropriate transition between the 12-story building along Lawrence, which is designated avenues and where that is intended to go, and the neighborhoods to the north.
And just final question, Mr. Chair. Is there a POPs feature? Is there an opportunity for residents to be able to, for example, sit on a bench that's situated on the property without them being trespassing? Is there that access, or do we have to do something special for that?
Thank you, Councillor. At this time, there is no privately owned public space formally proposed through this. There is a large amount of landscaping that it would be on the property manager once this is constructed to sort of regulate how that space is used. I don't believe there's any intent for this to be sort of exclusive, but there's no formal POPs proposed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of the deputy? Councillor Mansis?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question. When the church was operational, what was the capacity of the church?
Thank you, Councillor. Through the chair, I do not have that information. I apologize. It would have been larger than what would be remaining, as we're proposing to remove a lot of the larger later additions that form the majority of the place of worship. I don't have the exact capacity.
Is it fair to say that it's probably going to be more, the congregation would is probably larger than the amount of people that are going to be now residing in the building?
Thank you, Councillor.
As tenants?
I don't know that it's as easy as to say that. So we have 148 rental units proposed, including a mix of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. So it's a fair bit of population, but it wasn't an overly small congregation previously.
Okay.
If the concern is around traffic impact, I think when we looked at it, it's about 25 new trips during the day is what our transportation report found. So I don't think it's, as a planner at high level, I don't believe it's overly different from what you would see, maybe less than a congregation on a typical Sunday morning.
So how many parking spots are currently on the site?
I apologize, I don't know the current parking amount. The proposed parking amount, just to clarify from the past delegation, is 114 parking spaces, of which 20 are visitor, and there is EV parking spaces within there as well.
100 parking spots, not 114.
15 or 20 on site. All right, 30. So is it fair to say that when the church was operational on Sundays or any other day of the week, that the majority of the vehicles were probably going to be parking on Eleanor Drive? Right. So I don't think, and I'll ask staff, but I don't think that would have posed an issue with fire services or EMS. So to say now that during the evening, for the additional parking that will be on the street, would it be less than the parking that was probably there while the church was operational?
My understanding.
Looking at the numbers of parking spots that you currently have proposed on site?
So through the chair, I'm not entirely clear. My position would be, based on the submitted reports and staff's analysis, that we have sufficient parking to serve the proposed development without spillover onto the surrounding street network. We actually, through the proposal process, had staff request fewer parking spaces on this site. So that gives you an idea of sort of where staff believe the appropriate parking supply would be on this site. And we do believe that we're providing an appropriate amount.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mansis. Other questions of staff on this item?
I have a question. Can I?
Oh, sorry, the deputy. Sorry, question. No more of the deputy. Okay, thank you, Mr. Hannaford. We're moving to questions of staff then. Councillor Mansis, and then Councillor Thompson.
Actually, Councillor Thompson, you want to go first? To staff, what is the width of Eleanor Drive?
Through the chair, Eleanor Drive is approximately 8.5 meters wide.
So with the width of the street, if you have parking on both sides, is there parking on both sides of the street right now allowed?
Yes.
Yes, I believe that's the case.
So with the parking on both sides of the street, does it pose any issues with EMS or fire services?
I would say that with a street of this width, 8.5 meters wide, it's quite common to have parking on both, permitted on both sides of the street, in a local street context. All of the properties on the street have driveways, so most of the residential parking is taking place in private driveways. What you'll see is you'll have sporadic parking on street, and if it occurs on opposite sides of the street, it's usually staggered. That does allow sufficient space for vehicles, for traffic to get around that, and also for emergency services, etc. And as was noted in the discussion, you know, when the church has their peak services, there would be a great amount of spillover parking onto the local street in those circumstances.
But it didn't pose an issue for emergency services on that bottom portion of the street, did it?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Not that you're aware of. Okay. I guess that's it. Thank you for myself. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mansis. Councillor Thompson, questions of staff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if staff has a site plan that they could maybe just put on the screen. Just have a couple of quick questions. While maybe you're looking at that, there were about 13 concerns that were raised by residents during our meeting in 2023. I wonder if we could just I can ask, have those concerns been thoroughly addressed through this report?
Through the chair, yes. And some of the concerns will be worked on during site plan approval as well.
Right. So where is and that's why I wanted to see, do you have the ability? Okay, great. I wanted to understand the entrance to the property. Is it on Lawrence? Is it on Ellington?
Through the chair, vehicular access is through Ellington, and there are some pedestrian access through Lawrence Avenue.
And situated with respect to Ellington, to what distance from Lawrence is the entrance onto the property? Just approximate, please. Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure I maybe just stop my time there while staff look to...
About 60 meters.
Did I hear 16 or 60?
I would say about 40 meters.
40 meters from.
Yeah, from.
And
that's an estimate.
We would have some restrictions with respect, and this is perhaps from Mr. Clement, we would have some restrictions or could put some restrictions into the area where vehicles are going to enter the site from Ellington. Would that be the sort of norm because of the way the curvature of the road? Just for safety reasons, as Ms. Phillips has indicated?
I think I'll have through the
Mr.
chair.
Clement,
Yeah,
it's not for you. Okay. Oh, my mic is on. Mr. Clement is behind me, right? Because I heard his voice.
Through the chair, it's Lucas Pavlovsky here from
Lucas,
Transportation
sorry,
Review.
I thought you sounded like Dan there for a moment.
I just wanted to have your question about restrictions. Are you speaking about like term restrictions, or are you speaking about parking restrictions?
No, parking restriction. We can implement those, correct?
Yes, we could.
Right. Yes. So,
now the only thing I would say is, in the deputation there was mention of parking restrictions for a longer segment of Ellington, introducing some sort of no parking area. So I just want to be cognizant that any kind of parking regulations that are generic would also have impact on residents living on the street.
right, but it wouldn't be done without consultation either, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So, I mean, we're not introducing that at the moment. May I then ask you, because you're an authority on this and I respect your professional opinion, our policies have changed now dramatically as it relates to speed humps. Is that correct?
I'll pass that to Dan Clement.
Through the chair, yes, the traffic calming policy was updated last fall.
And what was the update from the initial policy that existed in the city?
There were a number of changes through the chair. The technical criteria, the operating speeds and volumes of traffic were reduced, and one of the major changes was the elimination of the requirement for a petition to initiate the process.
So no polling is necessary?
There is no formal polling process, Councillor.
Or petition, right, yes. Okay, thank you very much for that. So the site plan itself, maybe Mr. Ventresca or maybe one of your team, maybe just kind of do a quick walkthrough for me. I know we're fast approaching 5 minutes, but just a quick walkthrough in terms of what's there, the situation of the building, and maybe if you could actually at the end maybe just put up a sample of what the building looks like, and maybe just speak to the mid-rise guideline if you could.
Sure, I'll try to do that as a package, Councillor, just since I'm the one sharing.
So you like that.
So the site plan is a simplified site plan is attached to the report. The main bar building on Kingston Road, Lawrence Avenue East, oriented generally east-west, and then this is the 6-story bump out the deputant spoke to, the planning consultant, which had previously been kind of, they tried to deploy some built form back here in townhouses. By converting it to an apartment building to be associated with the bar building on Lawrence, it allowed for a deeper setback, more landscaping and screening to the north of the building. And then the previous questions about the access from Ellington is generally here, the driveway taken just before the bend of the street, which again allows for access to loading in the underground, significantly set back from residential properties to the north. The cemetery to be retained is to the east of the property here, adjacent to the spur lands, which are generally open space and run north-south from Lawrence. And then you'll see the deep setbacks from Lawrence. A bus stop, not shown on plans, is at Lawrence and Ellington. And the heritage, conserved heritage structure I'm outlining right now with my cursor is generally to the east of the building, adjacent to the cemetery. Yep. And I'll just scroll down quickly to get a sense of the elevation, which is here. You can see the existing chapel to be retained. I'm outlining with my cursor the open space, the bar building along Kingston Road, which has a base condition for pedestrians to walk against, supporting the public realm. And then in a 3D rendered form, as best we can here, you can see the preserved chapel, the 12-story bar, which is conforming with the Lawrence Avenue East urban design guidelines, as well as updates that were provided to Planning and Housing Committee yesterday. So that's why there's a sort of a step down as opposed to a cascade down of the built form to the rear.
Mr. Chair, just with great respect, because I see the time, but the first question that I asked, or this hasn't been answered yet with respect to, I mean, I know Mr. Concrum sort of addressed it, but I just wanted the 13 points that residents had raised, right, starting from concerns about parking, because that was a top issue. Have we really addressed those in this application? And I know Mr. Lukasz has spoken to that in terms of the transportation piece, but are you satisfied that those have been addressed to the best of your ability on behalf of the residents? And then I'll throw one thing in, Mr. Chair, otherwise I would ask for a second round, and I don't want to. The number of affordable rental units, can you speak specifically to that number? I know it's in the report, but if you can state it, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
I'll take the first bit, Councillor.
Please.
So we stand behind the recommendations of the building and did hear concerns about parking. All the parking is handled on site. It is not relying on any street parking or off-site parking to serve the building. It conforms to the current standard of parking, both for residential units and affordable units. The built form comments were taken to about transition. As you can see on the slide here, you see the step from 12 to 6, and then the deep setback I mentioned on the site plan. There's significant landscaped open space around the property, which will be heavily planted and secured through the site plan process. That was another concern that we heard. And access to and from the site were reviewed as safe by Transportation Services. That's why the access is further south than it probably was at the beginning.
And generally, the proposal meets the city's standards as it relates to mid-rise built form, as I went through in my previous answer. There are 46 affordable units secured. These units are supported. The application is supported through Council's open door policy and a memorandum of understanding with the United Church of Canada that was authorized by Planning and Housing Committee, I believe, in 2021.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for your indulgence.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any other questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, speakers on this item?
Where did the children
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I want to thank everyone for participating. I thank Ms. Phillips for her ongoing efforts and support in the community. Ms. Phillips has been a longstanding member in the community. We've had numerous conversations about this particular application and just other matters in the community. And as you see from her dedication being here today to express her concerns, I want to express to Ms. Phillips and to everyone else that the applicant and the application process has been very thorough with our professional staff, and I want to thank them for their efforts in terms of helping us to arrive at something that is more in keeping to what is appropriate. And because the fact of the matter is, if this was taken out of our hands, there could be many other aspects of this which would be perhaps not in the best interest in keeping with the community. And so this site and this particular church has been in the community for a very, very long time. We've seen it grow, and we've seen it then reduce in terms of its growth, and because many of the initial congregation and congregants and members have some have passed on, some have moved away, and we've seen the sort of demand for this particular facility to exist depreciated greatly, and it had been used for a varying number of ways. In fact, we've used the church facility for the Taste of Lawrence as a staging area for us, so we will be losing a very important part of an asset in the community. However, we will be welcoming new people in the community in terms of responding to the need for more housing and so on. I share the concerns that Ms. Phillips has about the issue around parking, but I also shared them prior to this application as well, because they existed. The numerous calls I'd get about Sunday parking and why can't you give tickets to people going to church, and I've never done that, actually. I've always taken the position that faith and you're praying and going to church, we would see if we can minimize the impact that that sort of condition would have on the community, because I believe churches and the faith is very important, quite frankly, to allow people to do that in peace and not having to issue tickets to them. So I've never done that. And so the application itself speaks to a very important need, as I said, about housing. But it also addresses the issue around parking. We'll have more parking space in the area now with this application vis-a-vis what was there before. And we've seen all of the surrounding streets and so on impacted by people going to church. And I praise that, people going to church and, and worshiping and so on. And clearly we don't want to impact them. All 13 of the issues here that the residents have brought forward have been have been processed, have been discussed with the applicant, with my office and our professional staff. We talked about school, we talked about the impact of the density on Massey Creek, we've talked about the timeline for the construction, the concern about the height, the masking and so on. The avenue study that we did in 05, actually started in 04, 05, basically addressed many of the issues and concerns. So staff had a blueprint about sustainable development in this area and beyond, quite frankly, because it's not just this immediate area. There's a lot of development that's actually coming now on Lawrence Avenue. We're looking for park space right beside this particular facility. We own a piece of spur lands that's there. We actually bought that in the city, and we now have to figure out how we can utilize that in a way. I've attempted on numerous occasions to meet with residents, some who have indicated that they were not supportive of having a trail through because of impact of their backyards and people coming in to break in and so on. So there's a lot of discussion. Currently, we're actually working to reduce the flooding impact because of the properties to the east and their elevation and the flooding causing water to flow into the spurlands which we own. Staff are doing, Mary and her team are working on that now to reduce the flooding in the backyards of the neighbors and so on. So there's a lot of work that's going on here. I'm going to move this item and move the recommendation, not with reservations, but with actual thanks, in the sense that the concerns that I've heard from Ms. Phillips, and they've been moderate now because there are other residents who had other concerns. The traffic issues, we can deal with those. There are policies that we actually have in place that can help with that. But I also think that based on what is actually being planned for this area in terms of the number of parking spots, we will actually have the ability to allow parking on site. And you know, a lot of people are now not using their vehicles, but this is Scarborough still. A lot of people do use their vehicles. We have the ability to accommodate that and so on. In terms of playing area, there is a variety of space that we're looking at, very close in proximity as part of one of the applications that we're looking at right now. And of course, McGregor is not too far away, and we have the G Group property at Birchmount and Lawrence that will have park facility there that's actually close by. So all in all, I want to thank everyone, and of course Kindred Works and the planning team here for coming to present it to us today. We have 148 new units coming into the community, 46 affordable units, 88 one-bedroom, 33 two-bedrooms, and 17 three-bedrooms, which is in need, and obviously the parking, bicycle parking in the center, and Councillor Deputy Mayor McAlvey would love that because we have more bicycle parking and more vehicles coming in to be able to create a minimizing effect on the environment in terms of pollution and so on. So, Mr. Chair, with that, I can move the item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson's moving the recommendations in 18.1. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Our, excuse me, our next item with registered deputants is SC 18.2, 3174, 3176, 3178, 3180, and 3182 Eglinton Avenue East and 1 and 7 Center Street official plan amendment and zoning bylaw decision report for approval. We have one registered speaker, Brandon Leal in WND Associates.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of committee. My name is Brandon Leal. I'm a planner at WND Associates, and just appearing here, a little bit higher. Hi, good morning, everyone. So I'm a planner at WND Associates, appearing here on behalf of our client, just to thank staff for their work on the application. I want to thank Councillor Ainsley's office as well. There's been a lot of collaboration on this file to get us where we are, and just want to appear in support of the staff recommendations and go from there. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions of the deputy? Seeing none, questions, staff on this item? Seeing none, speakers on this item? And I will thank Mr. Leal for coming in. I'll thank all of my residents that participated in the community meeting on this item and for their input on this item. And I'll be moving the recommendations. All in favor? And that carries. Our next item with speakers is SC 18.6, 2102 Lawrence Avenue East, alterations to a designated heritage property and demolition of a building under sections 33 and 34 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and authority to enter into a heritage easement agreement in Ward 21, Scarborough Centre. We have one registered speaker, Ms. Helen Phillips. Morning again, Ms. Phillips. You have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Oh, I won't need 5 minutes. The Heritage Church has been around for a long time as a brick building since about 1875. A number of years ago when I was a child, I went to that church and it was almost magical. A minister that they had at that time, whose name I will not mention because it would do my heart damage, destroyed that inside of that church. He got rid of the pews, he got rid of everything. And it ended up being a shell of what it was. I think because we have very few heritage sites in Scarborough, that church should be put back to the way it was, so that people can see what it was, and it can be used by other congregations that want to use it because it would just be open. I see no reason why it has to be the way it is now, which is disgusting. So that's basically what I want to say. I would like to see it renovated to its previous way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Phillips. Questions of the deputy? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time again this morning. We're going to bring this item into committee. Questions of staff on this item? Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much. I'm not sure which staff I'm addressing to. Yeah, okay. So what are we doing here with this item?
In terms of adopting the staff recommendations?
Yes.
Okay.
Just please, yeah.
Adopting the staff recommendations
Means what?
would allow for the consent of council to demolish the non-heritage attributes of the site and allow for the alterations to the heritage structure that would allow it to be incorporated into the mid-rise building and the surrounding development as just adopted by council or community council through the first item.
Right, but there's some protection here with respect to the frame, the area that is considered heritage.
Yes, that's correct. So the physical structure, the original chapel, the Wexford Chapel, dating back to the 1870s, is conserved through the redevelopment, and council would need to give the consent for a heritage easement agreement over the site to ensure its ongoing conservation through the redevelopment of the site.
And if there were any efforts or effect of changing or damage and so on, this would have oversight with respect to our heritage staff, be able to monitor the situation to ensure the continuity of the structure that is deemed heritage.
Yes, that is correct, as identified through the Heritage Conservation Bylaw as it currently exists.
And that's why we're here with respect to this.
Yes, we're looking to secure that.
Right. And how unusual is it that we go through this process? Alternatively, is this normal?
It is the standard process to have the heritage report and the zoning bylaw report come to community council together.
Right.
It's done with lesser frequency, I would say, at Scarborough Community Council because of there's fewer heritage conservation sites that come through the redevelopment.
Gotcha.
Your colleagues at Toronto and East York Community Council likely deal with 3 to 5 per agenda.
Right. Ms. Phillips has just raised concerns about going back to the original structure or the way the facility, particularly the internal area, she mentioned that it was gutted and so on. What authority do we have as part of this process to revisit the history and the process, which would have been a legal process at the time, in that the church or the reverend pastor, whoever it was that made decision, or the congregation in general, to affix or remove structures internally? Do we have the authority to ask for replacement and to be engaged in that process? And that's a yes or no question.
Through the chair, can it be a qualified
Okay,
answer? So there are no heritage attributes associated with the interior of the building. Right. What I can't answer is whether that is because those features were removed when the bylaw had come through. I can't answer that question. However, the heritage conservation bylaw is for the external and the relationship between the chapel and the cemetery, not for internal attributes.
But we don't have any authority, though, to compel anyone, particularly at this late date.
Through the chair, there's no specific authority. We could collaborate with the applicant to see what could be returned. However, it is a different use of the space now. It is not with the new redevelopment, it would not be used for worship.
And I'm sorry, you just said you could collaborate with the applicant in terms of return. How would or where would the applicant find what was removed? Is there an inventory? Is there a storage? Is there some?
Through the chair, perhaps I overpromised there. If there were things that could be done, such as views in and out, or matters related to, I believe it's dedicated for amenity space,
Right.
making it more of an inviting space as it once was. But the original parts of the building are
Right. I
lost.
just want to make sure that there isn't a consideration by anyone listening to your remarks that would suggest that we would A, be able to find, or B, be able to put back in place, or have any authority at all to compel as part of that process. Maintaining the heritage and the whole process, which is what we're doing, but we don't have the ability to more granularly get into that space of concerns that have been raised.
Through the chair, we don't have that direct ability. Anything through the conservation plan at this point would be quite limited to that effect.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of staff on this item? Seeing none, speakers on this item?
I'll just speak briefly. Mr. Chair, this particular church has been essentially a fixture in the community for a very, very long time. In fact, I have pictures that predates everybody in this room in terms of our birth of the area, where that church was essentially one of maybe 2 or 3 freestanding buildings in the entire area. And I have those photos, and it's beautiful, actually. But we've seen a transformation that has taken place and so on. And decisions have been made without necessarily any of us being privy to or having the ability to affect or change. And the fact that we are going to maintain some element of this structure, which I totally endorse, I think speaks volume to the fact that, as Mr. Van Treska has indicated, that we don't deal with a lot of these in Scarborough just because of the our buildings and the nature of buildings. In my term here, of my 21 years, I think I've now dealt with 4 that I can remember. I think one was the old farmhouse. I think maybe they've been, just trying to think, and actually it was in your ward, Deputy Mayor McKelvey, but you were not the councillor at the time. Your predecessor was the councillor. And we've done the Thompson property in terms of Thompson Park, and so on. So we are going to maintain some element of the heritage. Maybe it's not to the satisfaction of everyone, but this is at least something that we can do. And young people, others, and so on will still have the ability in terms of facing and admiring the structure. And I'm very confident, as part of our heritage conservation group and our heritage department, that all of the appropriate efforts will be taken to ensure the heritage status is maintained, and that this issue will not be compromised. It will be such that it will take effect, and for those residents living there and others in the community and so on, will still have the beauty of the view, which is pleasing in terms of when they look at and or walk by or taking photos of this particular area and so on. And then finally, the fact that the cemetery is going to be preserved and maintained and so on. I know I didn't ask the question, but I guess it's the United Church that's going to be protecting and maintaining the cemetery. That's the assumption that I was under, and I would assume that to be the case because it's been well maintained now, and it should always be well maintained into the future. So with that, Mr. Chair, I can move this particular item and the recommendations that are contained within. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson is moving the recommendations. All in favor? And that carries. And our our next item is SC 18.8, 18 Alanbury Crescent, application to remove a private tree. We have one registered speaker, Gertrude Welsh.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you at 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'd like to share my screen if I can. Just 1 second till I. Okay.
Hi, Ms. Welsh. We can see your screen.
Okay. Back in March, I started the process to apply for a permit to remove a tree from my backyard. I hired a tree service company, and Atlantic arranged for the required arborist report to accompany the application and applied for the permit. Subsequently, my application was denied, and the reason given was that the tree was healthy. I communicated with Jeff Harrison, Assistant Planner, Urban Forestry and Tree Protection and Plan Review. I explained to the Assistant Planner that we wanted to remove the tree as we wish to get our yard maintenance to a stage that we can manage as we are getting older. There was never any question that the tree was not healthy. Just because a tree is healthy does not mean that it has not outgrown its space. As a homeowner, we should be entitled to live in our home free of hazards. We understand the premise behind applying to remove a tree. We paid for the permit, agreed to plant another tree, and that should be the end of it. We were told that if a tree permit was approved, we would then have to pay for 5 trees at a cost of $583 each, for a total of $2,915. And this is on top of the permit fee and the arborist report, and we also then need to pay for the tree removal, which is about $5,000. My husband is 72 and I am 71. We have lived in our home for 40 years. The tree was already planted when we moved in. It has continued to get larger and has become a hazard. This is a very nasty tree. There's not a time of the year that this tree does not cause yard maintenance. The squirrels love to chew on the small branches, drop them out of the tree. The branches then need to be. In the spring, the tree sheds loads of yellow pollen that needs to be cleaned off the back of the car. The tree blooms in June and July, dropping lots of small seeds that need to be swept in the patio or washed or swept off plants in the garden so they don't suffocate. The squirrels continue to chew on the branches, which drop every day all year long. These are some pictures of the damage the roots are causing. I'd like you to pay particular attention to how these roots are popping up around. The roots come up the surface. It happens when roots have enough room to expand naturally. In an attempt to find water and nutrients, the roots will grow out of the soil and spread along the surface. The tree has outgrown the space it's planted in. Exposed tree roots can cause damage. Garden tools can be damaged by protruding roots, and exposed roots can also become a tripping hazard to pedestrians. It can take less than an inch of root sticking out from the soil to kill someone who's walking. From the pictures on this and previous slides, you can see that the root damage is not minor. This root damage makes it a hazard to walk on the lawn. I'm not steady on my feet any longer. The bumpy lawn is not safe to walk on. My grandchildren have fallen and bumped their heads on exposed roots. I request the Scarborough Community Council reduce the number of replacement trees required to and review the whole private removal process with the length of time this takes, and to take into the homeowner's reasons for wanting to remove the tree. The sole criteria for denial not be that a tree is. Thank
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Walsh. Are there any questions of the deputy? Sorry, I just have one, Ms. Walsh. When you talked about the tree as a hazard, do you mean your problem with the roots that you said your grandchildren are tripping over?
Yes, and also myself. It's very difficult to on the lawn because of the roots. And I'd invite you to come and try it. It is really not safe. And we don't have a very big yard. That's why the roots are coming up, because it's outgrowing its space. And what we want to do is there's a rock garden there as well, and with the rock garden, re-landscape back so that it's possible yard. Now
Okay. And have you and your husband tried putting like sod or more dirt and sod on top of the roots to cover them?
no, that's not really that's not good for the tree either. And the tree's only going to get bigger, and they're still going to continue to come up.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Walsh.
Oh.
All right. I'm going to bring this into committee. Questions of staff on this item? Sorry. So seeing none, I have some questions of staff. Excuse me. I wanted to ask about the tree replacement policy. The deputy was saying she's required to replace 5. If this tree was allowed to be taken down, it has to be replaced with 5 trees at a value of $583 each.
To you, Mr. Chair, I had a discussion with the applicant about next steps, and if the report was, our recommendation in the report would be 5 trees if community council approved the removal of the tree. Standard replacement for a poor condition tree is 1 new tree.
Okay. And my understanding from this report is the trees, in your opinion, it's more or less perfectly healthy.
That's correct.
Okay. And how old is, so this tree is 68 centimeters in diameter. Do you have any idea what that would equate to age-wise?
My approximation is about 35 years.
35 years. And you don't have any expectations? I know there were some comments about photogenic leaning, and I understand that, but you don't have any expectations that this tree is going to die of its own accord anytime soon?
No, and my research suggests that these trees can live hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years, and you think it's about 35 years old right now?
That's correct.
Okay, and can you talk a bit about the community benefits of a tree? I know often we get homeowners such as this that they have concerns about the tree, but I understand from forestry staff, speaking with yourself and forestry staff previously, there is a lot of community benefit to trees.
So a tree of this size probably sequesters around 6 tons of carbon. It also provides stormwater relief, cooling, habitat for wildlife, things of that nature.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So seeing any other questions of staff? Speakers on this item? So I'm going to speak on this item. I'm going to thank you, the deputy, for coming in this morning. I do appreciate.
Could I make one more comment, please? The tree is more than 35 years old. We've been in the house for 40 years, and the tree was already here when we moved in. So I'd say it's closer to 50
Apologies,
years old.
Mr. Chair. I think the deputant's not allowed to have the floor right now.
Yeah. Sorry, Nancy, is there any way to turn the deputy's microphone off?
Yes, thank you. We're in committee.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the deputy for coming in this morning. I understand the concerns that her and her husband have, but I also have to take in the concerns and the support of the community as well. We've heard from staff that the tree's healthy, the benefits of the tree of this size to the community, 68 centimeters in diameter, a very healthy linden tree. And I think the benefits to the community of a tree of this size and the environment are very important. So I will be moving the recommendations to deny the request. Any questions of the mover? Seeing none, all in favor of the recommendation? Any opposed? Seeing none, that carries. So our next item is SB 18.9, 20 Shirley Crescent, application to remove a private tree. We have two registered speakers, Lael Shaver and Janet Shaver. Lael Shaver's first.
Good morning. If I seem a little antsy, we had an event on the way here. I'm driving up Markham Road in the left lane. Suddenly, a car coming south decided to pull over in my lane. We didn't hit, but it was close. Okay, good morning, councillors. My name's Lyle Shaver. I'm here for the third time with my wife Janet to appeal the decision to reject the removal of the silver maple looming over our house. It's within less than 10 feet from the back door. The tree continues to be a concern on many fronts. The base of the tree is very high and getting higher every year, it seems, and the water drains from any rain directly into our garage, which is at ground level where the door is. Our neighbors have one huge limb hanging over their property, and they often had concerns and voiced concerns for themselves, their children, and their pets, and their pool, that the limb is a danger. Our patio and grass are becoming even more uneven as the roots keep lifting it in spots and causing it to be dangerous to walk on. We worry continually that the roots will penetrate and cause exterior wall damage. And inside the house, over the years, there have been new and worsening cracks on the interior walls, many which have been fixed, but the house is over 70 years old, and any settling that should have already happened. So something else is causing it, and we think it's the tree. Finally, and most importantly, there's an increased mental stress that has resulted from having a large limb break off and hit the house while we were sitting right below in the kitchen. October 28th, 2023 is a day we will both never forget. When that heavy limb struck the roof, it felt and sounded as if a bomb had exploded. I believe you have a submission. There are pictures. Picture number 3 shows the amount of the trunk that ended up in our backyard. More of it landed on the front side of the house. What you see is at least 15 feet long, 10 inches in diameter. It's a tree in itself, but it's part of the tree. The base diameter, as I said, is about 10 inches, and it's about that size all the way up to the house. Well, besides the loud noise, the entire ceiling structure depressed and vibrated so violently that several crystal strings from our hall ceiling light ended up on the floor. It was quite unnerving. You can see a picture of the light with picture 4 and 5. The ceiling went up and down at least an inch to an inch and a half. The significant damage to our house and barbecue, as well as the trauma experienced, has served to reinforce our belief that our maple tree has become a real danger to people, pets, and property. If this had happened while children were out trick-or-treating, the results could have been tragic. Pictures number 1 shows the damage to the house. Picture number 2 shows the damage, some of the damage to the barbecue. It was unusable because it flattened all the wheels as well when it came down. Since the crash, my wife's fears and anxieties about setting foot in the backyard have increased greatly. She's also indicated that thinking and worrying about the tree is causing her to lose sleep. For myself, I am definitely more cautious and on high alert when in the back. We both feel that relaxing or working in our backyard to maintain the property puts us in danger, and that entertaining friends or family in the backyard is no longer an option. This is not right. The one place every person should feel safe is in their own home. I was not at all impressed with the inspection that was conducted, which determined our tree to be healthy. He did not inspect the break points and assumed the limb was dead, which I disagreed with. I'm on the roof twice a year cleaning the eaves troughs, and I would have noticed a big, dead 25-foot limb. We realize we are required to protect Toronto's environment, but you also have an obligation to protect the physical and well-being of its citizens. We sincerely hope you do not choose our tree over us. Moving from a property we have lived in for 20 years, extensively renovated to meet our needs, and which has been in our family for almost 60 years, should not have to be the only option to eliminate our stress concerning this tree. Again, the one place every person should feel safe is in their own home. We're not trying to clear-cut our property of trees, just remove one that is an accident looking for a time to happen.
Time?
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if you could unmute yourself.
Sorry, are there any questions of the deputy? Seeing none, Mr. Shaver, how often do you get the tree pruned?
We had it pruned 3 years ago.
Okay.
And there was
And
one...
that's the first time you've had it pruned?
Sorry? No,
Sorry,
it's...
and I just asked because in the report from our city staff, it said that regular pruning would keep a lot of the hazards away that you've discussed. When you pruned it 3 years ago, did they give any advice on how often it should be pruned?
No, not that I remember. This limb looked healthy.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, all right, thank you very much, Mr. Shaver. The next deputy is Janet Shaver.
Good morning, councillors. When our prior appeal in June of 2020 was denied because the tree was considered healthy, we followed up with pruning. Yet only a few years later, October of 2023, a large limb put a hole in our roof and damaged our barbecue, an accident that I feel should never have happened. The trauma from the accident is something I never want to experience again. It has been 13 long months since the accident for us to finally get this opportunity to appeal the original judgment. Each passing day, week, month has increased my level of anxiety and mental distress. Please allow us to remove this tree. I believe in the concept of preventive medicines in my life. My health, vaccinations, fitness classes with my car, winter tires, maintenance, oil changes, my home, I keep neat, clean, no trip hazards, and my safety, having a home alarm system, are all priority ones for me. This tree has damaged our home. It has made me afraid to use our backyard. This year, very little maintenance has happened. Relaxing and reading a book, avoid it, and definitely no entertaining of family or friends in this unsafe environment. I am a very cautious person. We have so many trees on our lot that I am always on the lookout for any dead trees. This limb that has damaged our home was so large that it would have been almost impossible not to have noticed it was dead. I equate a healthy tree to a safe tree, and this tree, so close to our house, is definitely not safe. It's scary to think that there are 5 or 6 more limbs of that size or bigger extending over our roof that could also break off. I feel I have no control over a situation that I know is dangerous. I am begging you to let us remove this dangerous tree from our lives so we may once again feel safe and comfortable in our home. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Sheppard. Questions of the deputy?
I'm sorry. My husband didn't get to finish the fact that our backyard, we have about 40 trees in the backyard, and 8 of them qualify as needing a permit. We feel that we're doing our bit in keeping the environment at a safe level, or aiding that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shaver. Questions of the deputy? Seeing none, questions of staff on this item? I have a couple. I wanted to start with asking about tree pruning. The first applicant said they had their tree pruned 3 years ago, and the report said this is a 153 centimeter in diameter tree, which is quite large. I guess in staff's opinion, how often should a tree like this be pruned?
To you, Mr. Chair.
Or is there any standard that needs to be followed?
I don't know that there is a standard. Typical prune cycles, I think, are about 5 years. But a lot of it is based on arborist inspections and assessments.
Okay. And the deputants both talked about their concern about large limbs over their house. And they had one that I guess fell on the roof and damaged it after the tree was pruned. Is this something, limbs like this falling off a tree this large, is this like part of the natural cycle, or is it a risk that people need to be concerned about, in your opinion?
To you, Mr. Chair, it's part of the natural cycle. Looking at the arborist report submitted, there was a picture included of the limb, and there does appear to be decay and evidence that there was decay in the limb before it failed.
Okay, and is this something that would have been caught or should have been caught if there was regular tree pruning?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And then the first deputy, sorry, Mr. Shaver, made some comments about the tree damaging the foundation of their home. And I'm trying to understand, how that would happen. If you could, is there any way you can elaborate on that? I don't understand how a tree would damage like a concrete foundation.
So trees don't damage foundations. What they do is they will go into foundations that are already cracked or damaged. The roots will take advantage of the water and air that's available, but they don't create the damage.
Okay, so it would be cracks within the foundation of the house and moisture coming out.
Yes, pre-existing cracks.
Okay. Okay, those are all of my questions. Speakers on this item?
Question, Chairs Ainsley? Question, Councillor Thompson?
Okay, sorry, questions to staff. Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, thank you. Through you to staff. Did I hear you correctly that trees don't damage, I guess, foundation, pipes and other things that are in the, I guess, the infrastructure of a resident? Did I hear you correctly?
Through the chair, they don't create the damage.
I didn't ask that.
Yeah, so they will go
they
into
do
pipes. They will take advantage of existing cracks and of foundations and pipes. They will grow into them.
So let me just make sure it's really clear to me, and I don't mean to be argumentative or anything like that. I just want to make sure. So they don't create the damage, but they can cause a problem.
Well, they would cause like a blockage in a pipe.
Right.
Yes.
And they could, I would imagine, in terms of the growth of a root of a tree that can be quite expansive, they can create lift with respect to when they grow. Would
Yes,
that be correct?
that is correct.
So that is, in essence, a form of damage. Would that be correct?
Sure. Yes.
But it may not penetrate that causes standard damage that some people will come in and say, by the way, the root damaged my pipe. But it is not clear, or should I say, because I hear this often, and again, from staff, that the impression is that the tree itself isn't a problem. But the tree can be a problem, at least its roots, depending on how they penetrate. Would that be correct?
That's correct. However, most times these issues can be fixed without removal of the tree.
Got you. I appreciate that. But with a tree, let's say, I think the number, I believe, what I heard you said was 35 years? Was that?
For the last tree, this tree is approximately 60 years
60,
old.
okay. Nonetheless, 35 or 60. What is the length of growth for a tree root? Is there a standard? Is there an average? What distance could a 60-year-old or 35-year-old tree root grow to? Is there a limitation?
Well, there is no limitation, but typically what you're going to find is that the bulk of the roots are going to be within the drip zone of the tree, so under the canopy of the tree.
Oh, and what is really? So you're suggesting that if I'm looking at a tree and just sort of, I got lots of trees in my home and backyard, and I back onto into an area that has lots of trees and so on. So you're suggesting, and that you said about so is it the width of how the tree, the crown, for example, the distance of the crown, would I measure downwards in terms of to understand the limitation in terms of how far the roots could grow?
So that's not a limitation. It's where you're going to find the majority of the roots. The roots do go significantly farther if they have the ability to do so.
How many roots would an average tree of 60 years or 35 years have?
I couldn't say.
So what you just said, though, that, on average, it would be at a specific distance, but you don't know how many roots it would have, so you could have a variety of roots to a particular tree.
That's correct.
All right. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions on this item? Seeing none. Speakers on this item?
So, Mr. Chair, I'll speak just for a minute.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I know how hard we work to protect the tree, and I thank Ms. Allen for obviously her expertise and so on. And I have to tell you, if you've not had an experience with trees and how they can affect your property, quite frankly, you're operating from a particular position of not knowing. I have just spent thousands of dollars on my own home because of the roots of the tree that's actually on the city property. It's actually quite a distance away from my house, but it's actually gone underneath and it expanded into my bathroom. It's uprooted a fair amount of pipes and so on. I've had to get Roto-Rooter in, and they've dug in. I've got guys go underneath my house and all of that. We've actually just completed the full extent of the work. Had to remove all the showers, had to remove all the toilets. Everything was removed. Why? Because they took photos. I actually have the photos on my phone It's actually the root of the trees that's actually caused the damage. None of the pipes were actually broken. But yes, they were old, but they weren't broken. And so, had I not had this experience, I probably wouldn't be as informed as I am now. So I can actually sympathize with these two residents who've come in and said, look, there's concern. Last night, there was a huge amount of winds that was actually blowing. Many of the branches from the trees that are close to my home are actually banging on the roof of my house. And we've had branches fall down and have actually affected elements of my home. Now, I'm not advocating that I'm going to remove any of it because I love the trees. Like, they perform a great utility for me personally, but that's for me personally. But I do share the gentleman's concern when he said, look, I'm afraid, and his wife, about being in the backyard and a limb falling down and so on. Now, that may very well be that you need to prune it and do all the things that the staff have indicated. But I simply want to just make the point that we can't be, what appears to me anyway, it's just my personal view, as unsympathetic as it appears that we are being. Because we need to understand the plight of those who are mostly affected by this. The expression, he who feels it or she the most knows it the best. And I will say the experience that I've just gone through has actually transformed my thinking. Not to destroy trees, but to be more sympathetic to some of the people who come in here and say, look, here's a problem I'm having. I have lots of other trees, but could you consider it? Now, it's a difficult decision for us to make because we want to preserve and protect the trees. But I think we need to be much more sympathetic to the concerns that are being raised about how trees are impacting the utility of one's property. Because if you're feeling unsafe, if you're feeling unsure, of course it grates on you every time you're in your home. Is that the kind of feeling that we want our residents to have? I'll submit to you, no. What we want to do is to give them that sense of comfort. Now, I know Ms. Allen and others will work with these residents to make sure that perhaps the pruning, if that's going to solve the problem, that would be a good thing. Because that may be some of the things that I have to do with some of the trees in my property. But I will tell you, the feeling you have when you have a major flood in your basement like I did a few months ago, it's not a fun, hearty feeling. It is actually very difficult in terms of dealing with that. Now, I haven't heard that you said you had a flooding or anything like that, but just had some concern. My point is that overall, there is issues that we need as a community council and as a council to rectify and be very mindful of the concerns that residents are bringing forward. I know Ms. Allen and others will help if asked to provide information, and that's something we should do. So I'm not advocating the removal of the tree, but what I'm simply saying is this. We need to be more empathetic. We need to have more compassion. We need to be more concerned about the impact and the effect of how tree roots can actually damage your property. If I build a house, I'm not putting any trees as close to it as I would normally want to, just based on what I know now. And I love trees, by the way. Let's be very clear about that. But I would.
Sorry, Councillor Thompson, if you could wrap up.
Yes, Chair Ainsley, if I could put it as far away as possible, because I know the problem that occurs. And so I empathize with you both, and I'm going to support you. And I may not be on the winning side, but I understand the impact of that. Thank you, Chair Ainsley.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other speakers on this item? Seeing none, so I'm going to move the recommendation in the report that the tree removal request be denied. And I want to thank the Shavers for coming in this morning. It's very much appreciated. But as somebody that I live on a lot that's heavily treed as well, so I can very much sympathize with the Shavers and what they're dealing with. But I also I spend a lot of time pruning trees in our backyard, having people come in and prune them for us to make sure that they're properly looked after and maintained. The other concern I have is the tree that we're looking at before us, 153 centimeter diameter silver maple, that in the opinion of our staff is very much a healthy tree and provides a lot of the community benefits that are needed in meeting our goals for our tree canopy in each and every neighborhood across the city. So those are my comments, and I'll ask for a vote on the recommendation. All in favor of the recommendation before us? Sorry, I can't see.
Sorry, are you
All in favor?
all in favor? Okay, of the recommendation. Okay.
All in favor of the recommendation?
Okay.
And opposed? Sorry.
Councillor Thompson's asking for a recorded vote. All those in favor of Councillor Ainsley's motion to adopt the recommendations in the staff report? Councillor Ainsley, Councillor Myers. Any opposed? And Councillor McKelvey. Any opposed? Councillor Thompson, Councillor Candeval, Councillor Mantis. That item fails on a tie vote.
Sorry, Madam Clerk, could you explain the,
That item is not adopted.
does it go to, so that recommendations?
There are no recommendations, and the item was not adopted.
So, sorry, does it go to council without recommendations, or what does that mean?
This is a delegated item. The item does not go to council.
So could you explain what that means to the applicant?
In this case, there was no decision made. The item is not adopted.
A point of order, just for clarity. If this was approved, would that have given them the permit? No, it's to deny. So if it loses, no action, how would they have gotten the permit?
We had to vote no, 4-2.
4-2, no. Okay. So tie is not a no?
But it's not a yes.
No.
So just on a point of order, Mr. Chair, I think you were asking the clerk or someone to explain to the residents as to what just transpired in terms of our vote and action. It would be perhaps wise just to help them to understand the clarity of it. No, but can you explain that to them? Is that possible? Can someone explain that to them? Sure. The chair, maybe, Mr. Chair? I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Paul?
I can hear you. My
Okay,
understanding there's no actions being taken on this application.
Which means they do not have a permit.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So we're moving to our next item, which is SC 18.16, Rouge Hill Drive, traffic calming speed humps in Ward 25, Scarborough Rouge Park. We have one registered speaker, Dave Callingham.
We can confirm that the resident is not online, but he sent me a note that he was not available anymore. Confirming he's not online.
Okay. Okay, it's confirmed they're not online. So then questions of staff on this item?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Quick question to staff. Is a petition or polling required anymore for speed humps?
Through the chair, that is correct that they are no longer required as per the updated policy per IE 7.4 adopted last year at City Council.
So if I drop a poll to all the residents to inform them of this and to collect that information, is that going over and above the standard process?
It is outside the standard process, and it would not affect the outcome of the standard process in terms of staff recommendations.
Do speed humps have any known effects on property value?
Through the chair, I cannot speak to that.
Okay. The locations that are selected, can you speak to the process for deciding on those locations?
Yes, through the chair. So we do have guidelines in terms of spacing. Generally speaking, we want to space them at regular, even intervals to affect a consistent rate of speed across the entire length of the street. So we don't want people speeding up between them and then having to slow down. So typically, they will be spaced 30 meters from a controlled intersection and then spaced at regular intervals of between 45 and 75 meters apart. However, we don't always get ideal spacing. We have to be cognizant of utilities such as catch basins, manholes. We don't want to put them in front of driveways. There are other considerations as well. So we don't always get what we're aiming for, but generally speaking, that is our intention, as close as possible, to have them regularly spaced at intervals of approximately 60 meters.
Do speed humps cause significant noise for residents?
Through the chair, I guess that's rather subjective. I would say no. But again, I can't speak to what an individual would consider to be excessive.
Are these speed humps or speed bumps?
These are speed humps.
So they're a lower profile?
Yes, the speed hump is 4 meters in length and 75 millimeters or 3 inches in height.
Your recommendation has been forwarded to emergency services. Do they have any concerns?
Through the chair, yes, the responses from Toronto Fire Services and Toronto Paramedic Services are included in the staff report. The fire services had indicated concerns, and paramedic services indicated they were supportive. We do note in the report that traffic calming will slow all vehicles, including emergency vehicles. So
Okay.
we fully acknowledge that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKelvey. Any other questions of staff on this item? Speakers on this item?
Thank you. I'd like to speak.
Councillor
Mr. Chair.
McKelvey?
Thank you. There is one resident that has submitted a presentation in his arguments against speed humps on Rouge Hills Drive. So I had, given that he was not able to be here, I had guaranteed that I would share that with all of you so you can look at that. This street, we've had multiple complaints from speeding over the years, multiple requests for speed humps. And previously, we were not able to process that because there was not sidewalks, and the criteria did not allow speed humps to be placed onto roads without sidewalks. That process has changed. Residents, knowing this, came back to my office again to ask if we could put in the request to study the feasibility, firstly the speed and the warrants, and if they met the criteria, as well as have city staff study the feasibility. City staff have made a recommendation based on the speeds that were demonstrated and based on the site configuration and based on input from emergency services. Their recommendation is to install speed humps on Rouge Hills Drive. Recognizing that we wanted to have residents have the ability to give input into this, we dropped a poll for houses that live on Rouge Hills Drive in the impacted area, and that being between Lawrence and Island Road. So I want to be clear on that because the submission from the deputant claims that it was for the entire area, and it was not. So we had 67 responses, so the most responses we've ever had. 72% of residents are in favor of speed humps on Rouge Hills Drive. The letter that I dropped to the residents was very clear that should the poll be positive, that being more than 50%, I would accept the staff recommendation that is before us. On that basis, I accept the staff recommendation here today. Hopefully my colleagues will as well, and ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor McKelvey. Other speakers on this item? Seeing none, so Councillor McKelvey is moving the recommendation in the report and asking for a recorded vote. All in favor?
All those in favor, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Myers, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Candeval, Councillor Mantis, Councillor Ainsley. That item carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is SC 18.17, Lawrence Avenue East and Valia Road, private driveway, traffic control signals in Ward 25, Scarborough Rouge Park. We have one registered speaker, Robert English from the Scarborough Seventh-day Adventist Church at 4350 Lawrence Avenue East.
Mr. Speaker, members of council, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to address this council. The idea of a traffic light, and I'm going to say by the church that I represent, by the way, my name is Robert English, and I'm the first elder for the Scarborough Seventh-day Adventist Church with a membership of just about 700. Is one of the greatest things that could have happened in this part of the century. By way of history, when we constructed that building just about 15 or so years ago, we were trying to get a left turn lane going east on Lawrence. But then we were told at that time that we would have to foot that bill. And that would have been that straw that would have broken the camel's back. Because with our local congregation, it's 75 or so % on the age side. I've got to pick my words carefully. And so crossing there would have been, is a challenge. So the left turn lane would have helped. And incidentally, about 2 months ago, my wife said to me, why don't we try to get a crosswalk? So that was our next exploration that we were going to go on. But then from Councillor McGilfy's office, I got a call that they're about to institute a traffic light, which would have taken care of all the other challenges. And looking forward, the pedestrian traffic is going to increase exponentially over the next few months or years, because we have an unfinished gym. And as you know, we are sitting on two at-risk areas, the Galloway area and the Danzig area. So we're trying to have a gym that we can incorporate the community a little more than we do right now, and that is going to help. So I'm speaking favorable to this traffic light, which would solve a lot of the perceived challenges that we know. So we want to thank you in advance of your voting for having this traffic light at this location at this time. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. English. Questions of the deputy? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Mr. English, just looking at the map, it's not just the Adventist church that will be benefiting. The area I guess, to the east would also benefit.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
I just want to make sure that we clarify that it isn't just simply a matter of the church. Obviously, you're here on behalf of the church.
Right.
But obviously, there's a community
east of us.
Road and Welldark and all those other streets would also benefit, because it's becomes a lot safer for those residents to be able to traverse the area as well.
Yes,
okay.
That's for sure.
Okay, thank you.
And speeding on that area is becoming a challenge. In fact, if I may, I live south of there. So I'd use Morningside to Lawrence normally. But because of the danger of making that left turn, we have had accidents there before, I use Military Trail to avoid making that left turn. So I'd come in from the east instead of from the west. It would become very dangerous.
Other questions for the deputy?
No, I just thank him for coming in.
Thank you, Councillor McKelvey. Speakers on this item? Councillor McKelvey?
Thank you. So this is an interesting one. As you know, throughout Scarborough, we have a shortage of crossings, and it is a huge area between crossings. I think it's between Collins Grove and Bennett, quite the distance. And several residents had asked us to study the area for another crossing. And it was interesting because a lot of times people park across the street and jaywalk right in front of 43 Division, which is a little bit awkward to jaywalk in front of the police station. But I see residents doing it all the time. So city staff went out and studied the area. And I guess it was a happy coincidence and miracle for the church that they selected that area as the best place for the crossing. And so we reached out to the Adventist Church to make sure that they were okay with this. So we were extremely happy that they were delighted. So all the stars have aligned, and I think we're going to have a great safety improvement for the community, a safe crossing for everyone. And, you know, I think people won't be jaywalking in front of a police station, which is also a very, very good thing with a high traffic, high ticket risk. So thank you to city staff for the studying. Thank you so very much to the Adventist Church for agreeing to let us use that driveway as the landing point, because we need to have somewhere for pedestrians to cross. And I'm grateful this will work for community. Thank you.
And we thank you so much for having us. The only other question that was asked to ask you is, when will this be instituted?
So you're not allowed to ask questions, but after the deputation is closed, but I'm sure that city staff will go talk with you about when we can get this across the finish line.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Are there speakers on the side?
I think everybody wants a recorded vote because it's such a happy thing.
All right. Councillor McKelvey is moving the recommendations and would like a recorded vote.
All those in favor, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Myers, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Candeval, Councillor Mantis, Chair Ainsley. That item carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. Now sorry, Nancy, can I just ask for a point of clarification? I believe that's all of the items that we have registered speakers for.
That's correct. We're going to go
But
back.
on my handwritten note, I have a registered speaker for number 7.
It has since been removed. We're now going into item 5.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So we're going to ST 18.5, review of zoning regulations for nightclubs in Ward 20, Scarborough Southwest. This is the final report. Was held by Councillor Candeval. Councillor Candeval, questions of staff?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to staff for this report and for creating this opportunity. As you know, my ward was without representation for almost 6 months during when much of the work behind the night economy, which this is part of, the introduction of citywide regulations for nightclubs. I have a few questions. I'll get to my comments following. To staff, can you please walk us through the survey and how it was postulated for the ward?
Through the chair, we had a survey that was open to the public for about 3 weeks. It was advertised broadly through the councillor's newsletter, also on the city's study webpage. Focused email notifications were also sent to residents associations and BIAs in the area. And we collected the survey data, which informed our recommendations for this report. Generally, the results in terms of support for nightclubs was mixed, with about half opposing nightclubs and the other half in support or uncertain about nightclubs.
And for the benefit of those watching or in the room, where are the predominant areas in my ward that have these permissions?
Through the chair, the locations where these would be permitted are on most of Eglinton Avenue East, except for the section between Pharmacy to Ionview Road and from Bellamy Road to Markham Road. And then there are sections along Kingston Road, which include the section between Victoria Park Avenue and Birchmount Road. On the south side of the street between Claremont Avenue and Midland Avenue, and clusters of properties zoned CR between Midland Avenue and Markham Road.
One of the concerns from community is the proximity to residential homes. What is staff's plan to monitor? The motion speaks to a report coming back after a year of 3 nightclubs operating. In the meantime, how will staff monitor the impact of nightclubs?
Through the chair, we're working very closely with MLS staff, and we have members of the enforcement team here to answer questions, and there should be MLS staff available online for licensing questions as well. And so we'll be working closely with them in the interim to determine how things are going.
Thank you. So I'll get to those questions after. How did staff decide at 3 licenses after 1 year of operation, would there be a report? How was that determined?
Through the chair, we were trying to find a number of licenses that would let us look at more than one license. You never know if that's a very good operator or a very bad operator if you limit it to one. And we wanted to give it an opportunity to get off the ground a little bit, especially because the area is quite large and there are also a limited number of spaces generally where these nightclubs could locate. But we are open to discussing the number of licenses.
Is there any mechanism to inform the community when a license is being granted?
Through the chair, no, that's not part of the process. And we could direct that to MLS staff if they're available online. They're the ones who would be able to know the details of that process.
Thank you, planning staff. MLS, who would be answering questions from MLS online or in person?
Through the chair, hopefully the 2 folks who joined us today to answer some questions. They're not about licensing, but about enforcement, and we could start there, and I'll reach out again to confirm that they're available online.
Oh, you ready? Okay. What are the mechanisms as enforcement? What would you typically respond to when facing calls of noise or what have you?
Through the chair. Well, with regards to noise, we do have a dedicated noise enforcement team that does have complaints triage and action through that way.
Thus far, we've had restaurants effectively operating as nightclubs prior to this. How has enforcement staff responded to any issues coming out of those establishments?
So, through the
Sorry,
chair.
Councillor, you're at the end of your at the end of your 5 minutes as well.
Okay.
That's your last question.
I'd like to go again. Yeah, second round.
Yeah, through the chair. So our officers will investigate how a business is operating under the new regulations. It'll be easier to distinguish a nightclub from a restaurant. So our officers will be conducting clearance inspections to ensure they're operating correctly, and they have the proper measures in place to operate a nightclub.
And what's the typical approach to, sorry, Chair Ainsley, do you want to reset or see if there's anybody else who has questions before I go into round 2? You're muted.
Yeah, why don't we see if anybody else has questions, Councillor Cannavale, and then if you require a second round, we can ask our colleagues for that. Does anybody else have questions on this item? Councillor Thompson?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, just to staff, I'm just wondering about noise abatement. What's the process with respect to an application coming in, particularly as the councillor is asking about nightclubs? Is there an opportunity for planning, or I guess it would be planning or building staff, to request that abatement features be introduced as part of the process of licensing a nightclub? That's related to that in terms of proximity to residential property, for example.
Through the chair, the new licensing requirements include a requirement for a level 2 noise control plan that needs to be approved by the Municipal Licensing and Standards Division.
So is that an abatement aspect with respect to the approval as part of the plan? Is that sort of baffles? Is that a soundproofing? Is that included in that, the noise control plan?
Through the chair, the level 2 noise control plan does have several aspects in place to control the level of noise coming out of an establishment that applies for the nightclub license. It would include such things as, well, essentially, that applicant would have to go and reach out to an acoustical engineering firm that would come in and prepare a report regarding the types of speakers and other types of noise that would be coming off of that property.
So acoustic amplification.
Yes.
Those are all part of that?
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions on this item? Councillor Candavel, did you want a second round?
Yes, please. Thank you. To enforcement, typically, how do you approach an establishment that has had complaints and there's obvious examples of breaking bylaws?
Through the chair, so we always start off with education, so we'll ensure the business understands if there are any contraventions of the current licensing legislation. We'll give them an opportunity to comply. If they don't comply, we'll proceed with progressive enforcement.
In regard to incidents that may happen in the parking lots of these establishments, does enforcement have any tools to address those, or are these police matters?
Sorry, can you clarify what you mean in the parking lot?
If there are any issues of noise, commotion, any difficult situations, is that have enforcement's involvement, or is police informed?
That would be a police matter, yep. Not, it wouldn't fall under the scope of what we could enforce.
To planning, what options are there once the license has been granted and establishment has been created for local community to be informed of the parameters for that? Certainly our office is one vehicle. Are there any other options for the local community to understand the parameters of a nightclub?
Through the chair, Councillor, may I ask for a little bit of clarification? Do you mean the licensing requirements?
Yes, yeah.
So the licensing requirements are all set out in some information documents that are available to operators as well as online, and a great deal of information is contained in a document that was created as an information tool both for operators as well as that is available to the community, which is the Good Neighbor Guide for late night businesses, and that goes through many of the criteria themselves.
Right, and when an establishment goes through the criteria and fulfills them, is there any requirement for it to be posted online or the community to be informed?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of a requirement for it to be publicly posted.
The other concern residents have raised with me is in regard to this recommendation looking at, following one full year. Is there opportunity that within the year, if we're facing, if there's a need to have a report to catalog any issues, can we do that at community council? in light of this recommendation?
Through the chair, one of the reasons we were looking at a full year of operation with of each of 3 licenses for monitoring was to let there be an opportunity for those new operators to have a full year so that we could be determining if there were seasonality to some of the issues. We will be working with MLS, and we could be bringing information potentially to the councillor's office. But as far as reporting back within the first year, I can work with MLS to see if that might be possible, but it may be a bit short in light of giving new operators the opportunity to correct things that they may not have thought would create issues and may be beyond the licensing requirements, and to give them an opportunity to make corrections or modifications to their operations before requesting a change to their licensing status.
Is there any correlation between the alcohol licensing, which is AGCO, correct me if I'm wrong, and any bylaw infractions that may happen in terms of their licensing? Is there any communication between you guys as bylaw and AGCO?
Through the chair, we work very closely with the AGCO. We can't take any action in matters related to a liquor license, but we do work closely with them.
Finally, another question that was raised in the scenario that 3 licenses are not granted, it's 2 and following 1 full year, and I appreciate the necessity for complete seasonal observation and monitoring. Can a report be brought back if it's 2 licenses and there just doesn't happen to be a 3rd one?
Through the chair, absolutely. We can be bringing information back following that full year of operations for 2 licenses, if that's the number that you'd be happy with for the monitoring requirement.
Thank you. That's it. Appreciate staff's support for the in-person consultation and the formulation of the report. And I think going forward, it was very helpful.
Sorry, Councillor, you're at the end of your 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I'll use it in the comments.
Okay, other questioners on this item? Seeing none. Speakers, Councillor Candibal.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you again to staff. The comments I was sharing earlier is an appreciation of the work done in person, electronically. It is effective when we share results in a visually substantive manner. Going forward, I think that is part of how we should and do business here, is ensuring the Joe public can understand and the enormous work that's being done on a host of issues. This is one that was quite sensitive, given some unfortunate incidents that have transpired in with, as I mentioned earlier, restaurants that have been de facto operating as nightclubs. We saw 2 homicides over the last 2 years in these unofficial nightclubs in Scarborough, and has given concern for our community. Many who were not aware this legalization citywide was on the books in the latter half of last year. So this review for our ward allowed me and allowed our community to be aware of the parameters and permissions for this legalization. And yes, despite it being a mixed bag by virtue of the survey, and I would be remiss not to remark that there is hope that we're attracting and incentivizing the right type of positive music experiences or nightclubs that will enrich culture and entertainment life in Scarborough. But having recognition that we need to ensure the public has confidence in how we enforce our bylaws, how we monitor, how we work with the councillor's office and staff to ensure this is done well and it's done right, and to be clear with bad faith actors, their business is not appreciated or wanted, and we serve the interests of all members of the public. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Candavel. Sorry, are you moving the recommendation?
Yes, I'll move the staff recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Other speakers on this item? Seeing none, Councillor Candavel is moving the recommendation in 18.5, review of zoning regulations for nightclubs in Ward 20, Scarborough Southwest, final report. All in favor? And that carries. Our next item is SC 18.7, 2771 and 2773, Victoria Park Avenue, residential demolition applications in Ward 22. Councillor Mantis. Questions to staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have questions to staff. I don't know if my colleagues have any questions to staff.
Okay, does anybody have questions to staff on this item?
So we'll go.
Seeing none, Councillor Mantis to speak.
So I'll give my comments. So first of all, I would like to put on the screen the recommendation. I'm recommending from number 3 only A and B, and I'll give the reasoning behind. I'll give you the reasoning behind this recommendation of why. Right now in Scarborough, and especially in my ward, I have a large amount of encampments that are in the ward, and we've had we're having difficulties of trying to remove them, especially in sites where they're very close to shopping malls and to condo buildings. We actually have an encampment at Victoria Park and the 401, and it is growing. And seeing also how there's a difficulty with staff to be able to clear out encampments, I do not want to run the risk of having another encampment on Victoria Park, and especially on a site that is going to be one of the larger encampments or possible encampments that could happen. And because of that, I'm asking for only recommendation from 3, A and B, to be moved. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mantis. Questions of the mover?
Yeah.
Seeing none, all in favor of the motion before us?
Councillor Thompson has
I just had a couple of quick questions, Chair Ainsley.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Councillor Mantis, again, just to make sure I have it correct, you're moving A and B, which is to be A being the construction of a fence be erected, right? Mm-hmm. And then that all the debris and rubbles be removed immediately after demolition?
Correct.
So no sods?
No.
And that any holes on the property are backfilled with clean fill, so you're not leaving the holes open?
Yeah.
And this is a measure that would perhaps, I guess, deter folks from wanting to be there. So it's a sad state that we have to take these approaches because we're unable to deal with encampments.
It is. I mean, we saw the comments made a couple of days ago also from, I guess, large city mayors and our premier. So, I mean, it is a sad state.
Okay, great. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. That's my question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions of the mover? Seeing none, so we have the amendment before us. All in favor? That carries. Item is amended. All in favor?
No, we don't need an item as amended. Thank you.
Oh, you don't need it as, okay. Thank you, Nancy. All right, so our next item is SC 18.12, Metrolinx Scarborough Subway Extension, long-term temporary road closures, and public highway dedication, Kennedy Station connection, emergency exit building 1, and Lawrence East Station, held by Councillor Myers. Councillor Myers, do you have questions of staff?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. Is someone from staff here? Okay, yes. And just to confirm, is there anyone from Metrolinx here? No, okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I introduce myself as Navi Tathkar, the manager of transit infrastructure projects representing transportation services. To my knowledge, there is no one here from Metrolinx.
And Navi, just to confirm, we had multiple conversations with representatives from Metrolinx that they would be here at Scarborough Community Council to give us an update on the Scarborough subway.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Myers, after we had a meeting with yourself and your staff, we had requested Metrolinx to come to Scarborough Community Council and provide an update on the project progress. And it was particularly requested that this representation can be in camera, recognizing that there are several issues associated with the project that cannot be disclosed publicly. Thank you.
And to your knowledge, do you know if Metrolinx has spoken at other city councils just to give updates on projects in various parts of the province?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I cannot recall definitely, but I believe that representation might have been done at another community council, but again, just don't have the definite information.
Thank you. And just final question, do you think it would have been helpful to have Metrolinx here to speak about the project, to give Scarborough community councillors or Scarborough councillors an update as to where the project is and just how long they're thinking about some of these modifications to the community have to be put in place?
Through you, Mr. Chair, definitely, Councillor Myers. You know, it is always great to hear directly from the project owners, in this case Metrolinx, on the progress of the project, where it stands, and what is the schedule impacts. So yeah, I agree with the comment that Councillor Myers made.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Myers. Councillor Thompson, questions of staff?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, the report it's quite a comprehensive report with respect to modification, closure, and length of time associated with this report that would have dramatic impact on the community. Would you agree?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Thompson, thanks for the question. Anytime we reduce the road capacity with lane closures, yes, it does have impact on the traffic movements and creating some extra congestion. Just from my transportation experience, there is always a displacement of traffic. Some traffic does move to the alternative routes. So we do have a comprehensive strategy where we look at the entire area and figure out that the alternative routes remain clear of any added construction.
Right. Could you speak to the associated work interface and interaction with respect to your area, your department in Metrolinx in terms of the decision-making as it relates to the closures and or sidewalks, the pre-construction, and some of those challenges that are contained in this report?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Thompson, our department and our division in general provides an oversight of Metrolinx transit projects happening within the city. In this particular case of Scarborough Subway Extension, we review the detailed plans that Metrolinx submits to construct their project. In several cases, they come up with extensive requirements for lane closures and sidewalks, and from our side there's always a pushback because we do want to maintain pedestrian connectivity, cycling connections where they exist today, and also the vehicular movement, because I'm also a resident of Scarborough. So, you know, for me it is very important that our community remains healthy, our businesses connections are maintained during this construction, given our experience on the other projects.
So am I then to take it that Metrolinx makes these decisions, absence of consultation with the broader community, absence of really consultation with you and your team, or is it simply that they present to you and your team, this is what we're going to do, this is what we want to do, but there's no real consultation that really speaks to hearing from the community at large?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Thompson, to my knowledge, Metrolinx does hold open houses from time to time, and that information is available on the project website. However, in this particular case, I can say that, yeah, they submit their proposals to us, and we obviously do the technical review of that. And then from there on, you know, this refined proposal is brought forward to Community Council, and from there to the City Council for approval.
Just to be clear, and just my final question, on this report itself, are you aware of consultation that's taking place with the broader public through Metrolinx Open House? And I've been to some. I don't recall this one specifically, that the community were apprised of and brought into a space to be able to ask questions or to review or view diagrams and so on.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Thompson, as you can probably read through the report as well, these closures are proposed to happen in 2025, or I think some of them are even scheduled in 2027 and beyond. So I believe that this consultation will happen, consultation or more like an information session that will happen in due time, and Metrolinx will organize that. But to answer your question directly, Councillor Thompson, no consultation, direct consultation or information has happened
In advance.
in advance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Other questions on this item? Councillor Canada.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for coming before us. Sorry, I missed your name.
It's Navi.
Sorry?
Navi
Navdeep?
Tatkar.
Okay. Sorry, Navdeep?
Navi, N-A-V-I.
Navi. Okay, Navi. My concern, I just wanted to clarify the recommendation 4 and 5, Eglinton East between Midland and Huntington. Number 3. Right now, it's going through. If I read this currently, you want to close vehicular traffic. Number 3, am I correctly understanding?
Just
yeah. So it says temporary closure of Eglinton Avenue East between Midland and Huntington.
Through you,
Sorry, if the clock can be reset.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor, this, if you recall, under the existing condition, the Eglinton Avenue East between Midland and Huntington,
yeah, it's currently
is closed. However, the road is diverted to the north.
Okay.
So what the ask is here that it'll continue to remain closed, and the lanes will continue to stay diverted to the north.
Okay, so members of my community misunderstood this because they read it, yeah, even though it has the word continuation,
Yeah.
On the surface reading suggests that Eglinton Avenue would be closed between that. So that'll continue to have east and west movement. And the other concern that was brought to my attention was on Winter is going to be closed at the Commonwealth will be closed at the top, as it currently is.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that is correct. Commonwealth is going to be closed at Eglinton Avenue because there will be construction work happening for launch shaft at the extraction site of the tunnel boring machine.
Mm-hmm.
And Winter Avenue will be closed to carry out the construction work related to emergency exit building 1.
Mm-hmm. And those will be number 5 will be a new one, and the other item was to do with is it Transway? Is that being affected at all? The road going parallel to Eglinton on the south side?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor, I believe you're referring to the service road.
Transway Crescent. Is Transway Crescent being impacted at all? That's the road that takes you to the Kingston ride from east of Kennedy. So south of Eglinton, east of Kennedy, there's a road called Transway Crescent. Is that being impacted at all?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor, that road is not going to be impacted.
That was another concern that was brought up. And then finally, the Town Haven connection. Can you clarify what closure is happening there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the connection of Town Haven with the service road will close to facilitate the construction of the Kennedy connection. I believe that closure will happen in 2027.
But users of Don Montgomery can still access the parking lot and the center, correct?
So, through you, Mr. Chair, the north parking lot of the Don Montgomery Community Center will be closed, and the north access will be closed. However, they can the patrons can continue to access the community center from the south through Thrush Road.
Through Thrush, so we'll see movement going through Benjamin then?
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any considerations to mitigate the increased traffic on Benjamin? Or are there options available to address concerns of residents on Benjamin?
Through you, Mr. Chair, city staff working with Metrolinx will continue to monitor the situation, and if mitigation measures are required, we will be definitely bringing that forward.
And lastly, because the Scarborough Hockey Association, routinely, fills the parking lot, and this has been a concern raised by them, is there any possibility to keep some of the spots in the north parking lot accessible through the side road that emerges from the south parking lot? Either side, there's two side roads on either side of the community center. Can they access the north parking lot through that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we can definitely investigate that opportunity if it is available. Our goal would be to have as many parking spots available for the patrons as possible.
Okay. Has Metrolinx indicated or given clarity on how much of the north parking lot they want?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't have that information available at this time.
Is this typical of, or rather, when communication is sought regarding projects, are these answers to, have we noticed that Metrolinx has not provided or responded to these queries?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do represent transportation services. Our jurisdiction really is limited to the city road right-of-way or the impacts within the road right-of-way. As Councillor has asked about the community center, it does extend beyond that. So Metrolinx, in my opinion, in the past, my experience, Metrolinx has been forthcoming, and they have been providing us the answers to the questions that we have asked. Councillor, I will definitely take this back and provide that information to your office.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. That was your last question. Sorry, Madam Clerk, do we need a motion to extend the finish?
Yes, you do. We have it ready.
Okay. I will move that motion. All in favor to extend to finish the meeting? That carries. Any other questions on this item? Seeing none. Speakers on this item? Councillor Myers?
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I would just like to say, as the TTC Chair, a Scarborough councillor, I've worked in my role. I work regularly with Metrolinx. I meet with them quarterly as a member of the Joint Advisory Group. I meet with them individually as TTC Chair and the local councillor to talk about the various projects in my ward and the projects across the city. And I genuinely try to do this in a spirit of collaboration and honesty and having conversations that just work for the betterment of transit and the people of the city. And I have to say, I find this decision to not come before Scarborough Community Council just to be very representative of an unfortunate reputation that Metrolinx has earned for itself as someone that is just not attuned to the needs of the community, not respectful of local decision making, and just out of touch with how a modern agency should operate in a democratic society. I just find the decision not to attend baffling. I find the decision to cancel our meeting on how they were going to present baffling again. And I just really ask Metrolinx to, especially as they have this new change of leadership that is going to be coming in, to really be thoughtful and reconsider some of their business practices and maybe take a step back and look at the way they've earned the reputation that they've had. You have a group of councillors who are very supportive of this project, who all want to see this project completed. And all we are asking for is just information so that when our community members ask us questions, we can give them information, accurate information. It's nothing out of this world that we're requesting. So I sincerely hope that between now and council, we will be able to get this issue resolved in a way that we feel comfortable and that we are respecting our communities and are able to give them the information they requested. And I would like to move, Mr. Chair, that we move this without recommendations to council.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Myers. Questions in the mover? Seeing none. Other speakers on this item?
McKelvey, I just want to thank
Councillor McKelvey.
Councillor Myers for telling it like it is. I was in council, I can't even remember which Metrolinx topic it was, and I said Metrolinx needs to stop fooling and farting around, which is what I say to my kids all the time. And I thought nobody was watching council, so I was surprised when it ended up in the CBC. But I stand by that comment. I think that Councillor Myers is exactly right. This is a good opportunity for them to reset and to reestablish relationships with community. The other thing I will say is whenever I have residents that, yell at me about anything the city's doing, all I have to do is just say the word Metrolinx, and then I can get them yelling about Metrolinx instead, because there's always bigger problems that they are causing in our community. So anyway, I think it's good that everybody's telling it like it is. I hope that's some honest feedback that their new CEO will hear and adhere to.
Thank you, Councillor McKelvey. Other comments on this item? Seeing none, I'll just say that I'll be supporting the motion by Councillor Myers. I think I share everybody's frustration with Metrolinx and Metrolinx projects. We even had an opportunity to express it this week in Ottawa, the Federation of Canadian Municipality meetings with an MP from Parry Sound, Ontario, of all places, that didn't understand what Metrolinx was and was not doing. I find every time I interact with Metrolinx that it's a pattern of one step forward and 2 steps back with them. They keep talking about they want to do community engagement and interact with residents and councillors to make sure their projects go forward. And then we have instances like this where it's a simple matter of communicating with us. They keep talking about being in partnership with us. And I share everybody's frustrations. Thank you. So we have the motion before us by Councillor Myers on this item. All in favor?
Mr. Chair, one more.
One more speaker.
Speak,
Paul,
Mr. Chair. I wasn't going to, but you prompt me. I just wanted to say I agree with everything that's been stated by all of you and colleagues, but it's interesting that Metrolinx seems to have a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde approach to doing what they do. Look, we're thankful for the work that they do in terms of the impact that it will have going forward and so on. And our objective really is not to stifle or not to delay, not to impede them at all. It is simply that we want information. And as Councillor Myers and Deputy Mayor McAlvey has pointed out, to be able to inform our community as to what is going on. Questions that were asked by Councillor Candoval about, okay, road closures and, sidewalk and so on. Like, what's the big deal? What's the element of secrecy? What's the hiding? I mean, what exactly are they actually doing? It's confusing because all we want to do is to work with this organization. And the reason why we want to work with them, because we have to inform our residents as to what is taking place. And so it's perplexing, quite frankly, that, we've had some, even here in the Rotunda, through my office, we've, been able to suggest to them to have meetings here to people can come in and see what they're actually doing. We have space, we have facilities, so it's not as if they actually have to pay for it, quite frankly. We would do it for free just to ensure that they come in to help us to inform the community. So I'm really perplexed as to why this is going on, and I don't understand the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde approach. I mean, Metrolinx has gotten so much bad press on Eglinton, on other issues and so on. Surely to God, you're interested in actually changing your ways and behavior so that we can actually all work together and understand what you're actually doing. Where is the leadership? Thank you.
Pylon.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
We're here anyway, let's do it. Yeah.
Chair?
Sorry, Councillor Candoval, you wanted to speak?
Yeah. Poor budgeting and too many consultants. Poor budgeting and too many consultants behind soaring cost of Toronto's subway projects. I guess they didn't have enough consultants to come here today. Deeply disappointing to not have community and councillors directly impacted on this enormous project to have answers from Metrolinx. And I think this is a clear message we're sending on behalf of our constituents that this is completely unacceptable. And my thinking is that we need, as a council, to consider a provincial governance review of Metrolinx. The whole concept of the Triple P partnership was to remove the politics out of transportation planning. But what we've seen is we've created a complete black box of zero accountability, zero transparency. So I think it behooves us as a city to take a stronger stand in how we're governed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Candoval. Councillor Mansis, do you want to weigh in?
No, I'm okay. I'll just echo the previous comments of all our of my colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mansis. So we have the motion before us by Councillor Myers. All in favor?
All those in favor of the motion to
Sure, you want to
send
record a vote? Madam Clerk?
to send to council without recommendations, Councillor Thompson, Councillor Myers, Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Candoval, Councillor Mantis, and Chair Ainsley. That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I believe that was our last item of business. Madam Clerk, do we have bills?
We will put up the bills right now.
Okay. Councillor Candoval, would you like to move motion number 1?
That bills 1244 to 1247 prepared for the December 6, 2024 meeting 18 of the Scarborough Community Council be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
All in favor? And that carries. Councillor McKelvey, would you like to move motion number 2?
that confirmatory bills to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Scarborough Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 18 on December 6, 2026 be declared as bylaws and passed subject to section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006.
All in favor? That carries. And I believe that concludes our business for today, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Merry
Happy
Christmas,
holidays,
everyone.
everybody. All the best. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Is it?